Most people focus on the moment a handover happens. The project is signed off, the service contract begins, the implementation team steps away, everything feels complete, the launch, the approval, the transition. But the real story of a service relationship doesn't start there. It starts the day after the handover. Because that's when the slides disappear, the kickoff energy fades, and the service actually has to work in the real world. Today, we're exploring what really happens after the handover, when responsibility shifts, expectations meet reality, and the long-term success of a service is quietly decided. For clients, service providers, and operations teams alike, the day after handover is where the invisible foundation of a partnership is built, or where small cracks begin to form. And most people never notice it happening. Let's start with the moment everyone remembers. The handover meeting. This is the moment where months of preparation come together. Implementation teams present their work. Documentation is delivered. Processes are explained. Service teams are introduced. The client hears phrases like, "Everything is ready. Operations will now take over. You're in safe hands." At the time, the transition feels smooth. The project team is proud. The operations team is confident. The client feels reassured. Everyone assumes that the hard work is finished. But in reality, the handover isn't the finish line. It's the starting line of the real service lifecycle. And what happens next will determine whether the service becomes stable, efficient, and trusted, or quietly fragile. At the time, the decision to hand over makes perfect sense. The day after the handover, everything still looks fine. Emails are answered, systems are running, reports are generated. The client receives their first operational updates. From the outside, the service appears to be functioning exactly as expected. In fact, the early days after handover often feel reassuring. Small wins appear quickly. The first ticket gets resolved. The first report is delivered. The first operational call goes smoothly. These early signals create confidence. The client believes the transition worked. The provider believes the service model is working. And the operations team begins settling into their new responsibilities. But this calm period can also hide an important truth. The system hasn't really been tested yet. Most services reveal their true complexity only after time passes, only after exceptions appear, only after unusual requests arrive, only after pressure increases. At this stage, everything still feels stable, and that's exactly why the deeper shifts are easy to miss. This is where the invisible shifts begin. After a handover, behavior slowly changes. The implementation team disappears from daily operations. Documentation replaces conversations. Assumptions replace detailed explanations. The operations team begins adapting the process to real-world situations. Small adjustments appear. Maybe a step in the workflow is skipped because it takes too long. Maybe a report is simplified to save time. Maybe a request is handled informally instead of through the official system. None of these changes seem significant. In fact, they often feel practical, efficient, helpful. But these small adaptations slowly reshape the service. New pressures also begin to appear. The operations team now manages multiple clients. Priorities compete, deadlines overlap, and the neat process described during the handover begins encountering real operational complexity. The result isn't failure. It's gradual evolution. The service becomes slightly different from the design, and that difference grows slowly, one small decision at a time. The consequences don't arrive loudly, they arrive slowly. Months after the handover, small inefficiencies begin to compound. A manual step that seemed harmless starts consuming hours. A reporting shortcut leads to missing information. A misunderstood process creates inconsistent results. Suddenly, a problem appears. From the outside, it feels unexpected. People say things like, "How did this happen? Why wasn't this noticed earlier?" But in reality, nothing broke overnight. The problem grew quietly over time. Small compromises accumulated, tiny process deviations stacked together, until eventually the system reached a point where the issues became visible. The real lesson is simple. Most operational problems aren't sudden events. They are the result of small changes made long after the handover. Most people don't ignore problems, they simply don't see them yet. Human psychology plays a powerful role in this. There's cognitive bias. People believe the system works because it worked yesterday. There's overconfidence. Teams assume they understand the process after only a few weeks. There's process blindness. When people work within a system every day, they stop noticing small inefficiencies. And there is emotional investment. Nobody wants to admit that something implemented with great effort may not be working perfectly. Organizations also experience inertia. Once operations settle into a rhythm, changing the process becomes difficult. So small problems stay small until they grow large enough to demand attention. People with experience in service operations view handovers differently. They don't judge a transition by the day it happens. They judge it by what happens months later. Experienced professionals ask different questions. Not, did the handover go smoothly? But, what happens after the handover? They look for signals. Are processes actually being followed? Are teams improvising? Are exceptions increasing? Is documentation still relevant? They monitor behavior. Are teams collaborating effectively? Are responsibilities clearly understood? Is knowledge being maintained? Experienced service leaders know something important. The stability of a service is not defined by the launch. It is defined by how the system behaves after the excitement fades. That's why mature organizations treat the first months after handover as a critical monitoring phase, not an afterthought. The lesson isn't don't hand over. The lesson is plan for the day after. Every service transition should include one important mindset shift. Instead of asking, is the handover complete? Ask, what happens when the system runs without us? Instead of designing a perfect process, design a resilient one that anticipates human behavior, operational pressure, unexpected requests, long-term evolution. And the most powerful question anyone can ask after a handover is simple. What will this look like 6 months from now? Because if you can answer that question honestly, you are no longer managing a project, you are managing a service. Most service failures don't happen during implementation. They happen after the handover, in the days, weeks, and months that follow. When systems adapt, when teams adjust, when the real world begins testing the process. The handover may feel like the end of the story, but in reality, it's only the beginning. If this changed how you think about service transitions, that's the goal, because the most important part of any service relationship is what happens the day after. This is Servicingpedia, and next time we'll explore what really happens the day after a service outage.